on stream, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, how's my sound now? It's sounding better. Hello again, then, since I've overcome sound problems and visual problems in the first minute of being live. Welcome to Discussing Tabletop.
I always check your sound. For
Yeah.
that reason.
I actually think I
More
had
than I
forgotten
do.
to fix my sound up before we started. I just had forgotten actually today. So thank you. Yeah, that's me being foolish sometimes. What was I gonna say?
Honestly, on stream, I've started to pipe my sound back to myself, so I've gotten more used to listening to myself. So it's not as horrible.
I listen to myself a lot anyway because I edit a lot of my own.
Oh, listening to yourself live is a whole different beast.
I'm sure.
It just messes with your brain for some reason.
This week we actually don't have a huge docket of regular news topics. For the last couple of
Does that mean we'll actually get to a deeper discussion?
No.
I'll choose when we're getting close to it. That's just me being kind of bad. Whenever I'm putting up the docket late, I've been kind of strangely busy on a Saturday. When I'm putting it up close to when the thing is here, and I finished this docket an hour ago, maybe. Finally put it up online half an hour, 45 minutes or 15 minutes ago or something. I finally got it up online and stuff. I'm like, oh yeah, I haven't put it up, but it was just busy day. Not bad busy. So yeah, how's everybody's weeks going? I think this was a fine week. I enjoyed all the great role playing games. I enjoyed hanging out and gaming, and it wasn't bad. Anything interesting that people want to shout out there from existence or life that would be interesting?
At work, I saw a Cybertruck, and it indeed looks as stupid as it does on the internet.
Yeah, I see them every now and then. I mean,
it is
I'm
the
in LA,
dumbest
so I see them
vehicle I've
often.
ever seen.
It's pretty bad. I really
really
agree.
dumb.
It's really bad. I see them and I'm just all it's
Man,
just,
it's like a PS1 car in real life.
Oh, I gotta look. I haven't actually seen what this looks. Oh wow.
Yeah, it's like a PS1 car model.
Is this a bad
it's so dumb.
I feel like if I see this, it's just this is 80s Shadowrun or Cyberpunk.
Apparently
what people thought future cars
you can't
would be.
take it through a car wash or it internally shuts down.
But yeah, I see that and I'm thinking is this 80s Cyberpunk?
That's what someone thought. Someone named Elon Musk thought it looked cool, but no one told him no. And
he also thought X would be really cool, and everybody told him no, and he still did it. So, and now it is just X and no longer Twitter, and I feel sad about all of existence.
That's the thing. It's called X, but it's still Twitter because it's still
no, not anymore. They finally got to X.com.
Yeah, they did finally change it. And there was an issue where browsers were flagging it as an adult site because of that.
Yep. I heard about this, but it's Twitter.com. I guess still works because
Twitter.com I think still goes.
It redirects you. Yeah, it redirects you to the X.com.
It's so stupid.
It's so very stupid. Anyway, we're gonna talk about hopefully less stupid things today, and that's what makes me happy. Tabletop.
Indeed.
And we got an interesting docket of some topics, and why don't we dive into those to begin with our news stuff, and then we can get into some deeper topics on our week in tabletop and stuff like that. So, I wanted to talk about this first because it is 5e, and we got from Nerd Immersion the look at the Gold Dragon, which is...
It's divisive to say the least.
I like it.
I think it's overall okay. I think it'd be better if the flared, I guess it's supposed to be a really long wing, if that didn't go all the way down the tail.
It's always been the Gold Dragon, though. They've always had a frill.
Yeah,
all the way down.
I've never liked the way Gold Dragons look in D&D, to be fair.
Yeah,
this doesn't really change my opinion that I think they don't look very good.
I kind of actually get why, because they've have
if it actually made noodles, it would be delicious.
Yeah, it's got noodle breath.
Yeah, I mean, I always found the wings really oddly shaped,
Yeah,
and they're kind of like not really wings. But honestly, I've always kind of liked its interesting style.
It's certainly the
Um,
most unique looking dragon in D&D. It kind of always has been. But
mhm.
I think it's the thing that
And the
why
red dragon is the most like normal looking dragon.
yeah, the red
which is
dragon
why
is the
those
most.
two are
This
kind of
is
being-
this is a European dragon.
but I think that's the thing about the gold dragon. It's trying to be both a eastern and a western dragon
It
at the same
does
time.
have bits of both, and it's kind of weird.
And I
And I
think
ki-
it's well,
like how-
for me. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. You like how in the middle it is?
I do, yeah.
For me, I don't necessarily mind it, but I understand why it can be divisive, because it's that kind of like uncanny expectation where there's people that are like, okay, we can go for like very creative stuff, but a lot of people are like looking for regular, and especially like in this artwork here, I'm gonna say it does strikingly kind of go in a weird place. Definitely.
And to be fair, the last like 3 generations of gold dragons have been very eastern.
Yeah.
I think it's just interesting, but like, yeah, I feel like I don't know.
So it's
I'm
interesting that they're mixing it up.
It's just
but-
design.
I'm
Design
of
mix-ups are interesting.
I'm of two minds with this goes to like just the overall general aesthetic of the new art they're doing. A lot of the art that we've seen so far invokes imagery of second edition D&D art. And I personally don't like that
Yeah.
because I don't like any of second edition's art. I'm not a big fan of the way a lot of things are look in second edition, but it's a good homage in my opinion, though. I think.
Mm-hmm. If I remember correctly, though, second edition only had a gold dragon as a metallic dragon, so it was the only one
I
from second edition.
Think that's correct.
Early second edition. I think second edition AD&D might have had more.
Yeah,
Maybe. I don't know.
AD&D, yeah, AD&D is different. Second
Well, no,
edition.
AD&D is second edition. AD&D
Sorry,
second
AD
has AD&D second
Yeah.
edition is different than AD&D first edition.
Yeah,
because
sorry. AD&D
Okay,
second
okay.
edition is what I meant. Yeah, it might be different, but I know like the second edition AD&D
Brass
itself,
existed in second edition. So yeah, a bunch of the metallics existed in second edition.
they weren't really classified the same way, though. I think.
No, I don't believe they were.
Like if I pull out, I don't know. I might have it on my shelf. I might not. I've got my old second edition AD&D monster manual, and I know
Before my
by
time.
then we had this was a handout from my brother, technically. But at the time, it had a lot of the dragons that we know of, but they didn't classify the same. It was like group classified into like metallic, chromatic, gem when we hit third edition, and I think that's when they did try to like really signify differences in their designs a lot more by the time we got there. And there were some interesting flares between a bunch of different ones, and color, horn shape, some of them had wing shape, like it's I don't know. I feel like sometimes they tried too hard to make it all like different. And I both understand and also don't understand that too, because then you kind of go again. That's the thing I have to say about it. As a creature that's supposed to not have supernatural flight, it has to be normally flying. I don't see the gold dragon in this picture flying.
It's a little weird.
It's not supposed to be supernaturally flying. It's supposed to naturally fly. The thing about the Eastern dragons is they're supposed to have like a supernatural flight ability with most of them.
Yeah.
But Western
I mean,
dragons just use goddamn wings.
Yeah, noodle.
Yeah, and based on what I could find quickly, the dragons as we know them were were kind of devised between AD&D second edition and third edition.
Makes sense. Yeah.
And D&D third edition. So
Yeah, third edition did a lot of stuff. But
Um,
still, the echo
yeah,
dead.
this thing doesn't tell me whether or not we had them then, but
Again, some of them I do, definitely plenty of them I do remember, but it was because in second edition they weren't as divided up. They were just it was the kind of thing of like if you were looking up Gold Dragon, you look under G. They weren't like it's dragon, comma something. It was it's just.
I will be
divided
right
up.
back one moment.
Mhm.
apparently first edition did have some metallic dragons as well.
I'm sure they did that back then.
Um,
First edition had some interesting stuff.
but they were evil aligned.
Everything was evil in First edition, I'm sorry.
That's
Like, I
fair.
guess there were a couple of good things, but most of it was just like evil unless it's comical. Like, I think the Flump was technically good in first edition, but it's also like, haha, Flump. No, it's interesting what they're doing for the art style. I would like to see all of it, and then kind of give like a big thing about it, but I feel like it's interesting that it's a dynamic pose, but again, I just don't feel like this thing would fly, and it doesn't. It screams just like, I can see the limbs there, but I think that's the other thing I can kind of say, like, your limbs don't feel like they sort of fit, but they also don't a little bit. I don't know. It's
Sorry
weird.
about that.
It's very
Fine to me.
It's very like, this is an Eastern dragon, and you know.
Yeah, basically the limbs are the limbs. So I will agree. Like, it's kind of weird the way they. I mean, I'm not gonna say it's not unique or different. I do like it, but
As Lightning is saying in chat, yeah, all these dragons existed in second edition.
yeah. So I mean, apparently I just said they existed in first, so I'm not surprised they existed in some capacity in second. But there was something. I remember there was something weird about the way dragons were in second. That's why I thought they didn't exist in first. Anyway, but yeah, no. Apparently they did. There was something weird about them, though. I don't remember what they were, because it was AD&D where they were divided into chromatic, metallic, or AD&D second edition where they divided into metallic. And...
Yeah, I think just the original Gold Dragon was like, we're not going to do a lot of Eastern dragons. Here's an Eastern dragon, and so they're kind of harkening back to that.
Yeah.
But I did like it a little bit better when we were in like third edition, where they're like, here's just actually a bunch of Eastern dragons that are unique and on their own. So like, you know, they have an aesthetic that.
To be fair,
matches more with that.
they've been adding in some of the esoteric and imperial dragons and the Planescape book that were added back in.
That's
Mhm.
good.
Yeah, but I do like it. It's the limbs are very Eastern dragon on sorry, the limbs are very Western dragon on an Eastern dragon body with.
Yeah, maybe
kind
that's
of-
why I'm feeling a little like off about it. Like the limbs.
Yeah, and that I will admit that is basically how they did it. They are very pronounced limbs. Normally, they have very like Eastern
Subtle.
dragons have thinner, subtler limbs. Like they're kind of not really necessary. Like they're mostly used for standing.
Yeah.
But
Anyway.
yeah, and the tail is super long. They also tend to the back legs would also I think be a bit further back on like an actual Eastern dragon. So there's definitely some weird blending, but I personally like it. So
I'm kind of at this. Yeah, for me, it's just like it's fine, but I do feel like it's got a little bit of this kind of like weird uncanniness to me that kind of like makes it maybe not as good. Like it lowers its opinion in my like brain a little bit. You know, I think is what it is.
Mhm.
So there's just a little bit of like that uncanny. This is kind of odd, but
Also, I like how they do have a picture lower down which says that from above or from like the top with its wings, it kind of looks like a sword, which is kind of fun. Yeah, that tail's so long. That's the only thing that I think is a little.
I think
weird,
the tail's
just
a little
how
too long.
I agree. It's like it's impractically long. Like that's gonna get stuck in a door. Come
Yeah.
on.
yeah. Here's the thing, like when I get that other picture later on too, its body doesn't look as. It looks kind of really weird then because it's got that impractically long tail. So it
It's also
feels
got
like
a very long neck, and then the body is like, no, I get why people don't like it. I actually do. I like it, but I get why people don't.
it is very like uncanny, and like I gotta admit, like it's just so weird. Anyway, yeah, that's kind of interesting. Momo has an update.
Hi.
Momo has you have received Final Fantasy 14 TTRPG.
So I haven't. That's the main thing. One, it shipped yesterday. So I'm probably not going to get it for a bit because of the holidays. So because things aren't going to ship tomorrow or Monday.
Mhm.
But important, and I'm going to post this in chat.
Mhm.
They released the combat rules
Ooh.
for the system for free, which in my opinion are the most important thing because it is a combat system. It plays a lot, at least from reading it, a lot like D&D 5th edition, which it makes perfect sense because everyone who worked on it is a big fan of D&D. You have your stats, very similar to D&D stats, except they're named Final Fantasy-like. There are no classes included in these rules, because that is in the starter set itself, which I have not gotten yet, but again, these are the pre-common rules. It has advantage on dice, all the standard stuff you'd think exists, but interestingly, they did maintain the roles from the game. You can play a tank, you can play a healer, you can play DPS.
Okay.
So this will have actual tanking in it, much like Final Fantasy XIV, which is very important in Final Fantasy XIV. Which is good. The thing I found interesting as well is you have your defense, which is like your AC, and then you have magic defense. So you have a separate defense number for spells, which I find is very interesting. Otherwise, it's pretty much D&D 5e with some extra stuff on top of it, which I'm not wholly against. This 5e is very easy to get into.
Yeah. Definitely, I feel like it's a thing I kind of say about 5e. It's that love-hate relationship I with it. It's very easy and simple, and I think it is great for when people throw stuff on top of it. It's a great system in certain ways, and so I'm glad it's a good basis to work on.
Something that's very interesting and fun is they very much video gamified this. They mentioned that if a group becomes very invested in a bit, they've normally if your session's running long and it's just like a text thing, if your session's running long and you would have to stop in the middle of something, they've in this book have called that quick saving, which I think is very fun. So there's a lot of just very neat little things like that in this game.
They respect that they come from a video game. So
basically, this was made by the devs who make Final Fantasy XIV. Okay. So if someone was going to make this, these are who I would trust to make it the most. When I get the starter set, probably next week it'll show up because it's shipping from California, because that's where the Square Enix warehouse is. I will go over it more and I'll have my camera on to show it. But from what I've read from these just 2 free booklets, it looks pretty good. And I enjoy that it's called the free trial, because the free version of Final Fantasy XIV is the free trial.
Yep. That's good.
So I'll have more on this next week probably, because it did ship. I got confirmation last night.
Cool.
All
right. We do have a little bit from Pathfinder, if you want to look at that direction for something other than 5e. First off, we have the book called Howl of the Wild, which is an interesting one to come out. I wanted to mention it being released and this is going to be. It is updated to the core system, the new version of the rules, sans influence from D&D, and it gives 6 new ancestries: Minotaurs, Centaurs, Merfolk, Athamaris, which are basically Laccoliths from the old world, from awakened animals, and an insect species, along with archetypes, spells, player options, animal companions. It's the... What's a great way to describe this? A little bit of that natural / maybe a little bit. You can be an awakened animal. You can really go full, furry on this one, probably.
Yeah.
Good.
I'm curious how they would stat out the awakened animal, because it sounds like you just be whatever animal you want. Probably just this. Probably got some just basic kind of I would say generic combo of things that you just choose stuff that makes it feel like that animal or something for your play options. And probably just feats and stuff that build you. That's an interesting idea.
Yeah.
Certainly.
I mean, I'm excited. I mean, I know we talked about it a little bit before, but yeah, no, I'm excited. I want to see what this is all about. So yeah,
finally released. So it's out there and ready for people to interest. Now, the other thing which was interesting was there has been an update to Roll20 when it comes to Pathfinder Online. Now, granted, some of its bundles, some of its prices, but the big thing is they have apparently a new character sheet, which is actually a pretty big thing for a thing in Roll20, I'm not going to lie. I'm curious. I haven't had a chance to check out the character sheet. I would have to make a game. But certainly speaking, it looks like they're planning on unleashing a lot of stuff with Roll20. They have an entire roadmap related around the second edition remasters of material that they are putting together. So right now, it's kind of like, if you're looking at probably stuff for second edition Pathfinder, it's probably going to be a lot of material that's on Roll20, or like the sheet there is going to reflect the old way core material, the remaster project. And they are expecting to be completely ready and have everything up there by fall and winter this year, basically. So, new sheet, some custom effects. They're working on enhanced traits and spells and custom skills and lores and stuff like that, it looks like. Some drag and drops and NPCs and all that kind of stuff that they're adding in throughout summer. So it's a lot of stuff that's actually really convenient stuff. Like, it's a lot of stuff I kind of have used a bunch of things like that for first edition stuff. Like, I gotta be honest, I constantly am using a lot of, like, the drag and drop stuff when I'm building, like, NPCs or monsters sometimes, because it's
Something I would love for a game to have, doubt they're going to do this anytime soon, or for Roll20 to have, because they have character builders. I'd love monster builders. Wouldn't that be awesome?
That'd be nice. But, again, it's one of those things, I think certain systems do have decent monster building rules, but so many do not.
Pathfinder's second editions are not too bad, thankfully.
Okay, I haven't really looked into them too much because I haven't even used them. I knew first edition was actually really good on monster building. I'm not gonna lie, they actually were.
But it was still so. Second edition is a top-down approach. So you basically, instead of like building it like from the bottom up, where it's like, oh, this, you basically just design what you want for your monster, and then you basically go, okay, so you basically balance between high stats and low stats, and then you basically have tables that will tell you if you want a high AC or a low AC, and you basically just decide what you want for your monster. And like, you can have more, it's like extreme, high, normal, low, and terrible are basically is the scale. And basically it's like, okay, at this level it should have this bonus if you're doing a terrible AC, you know, and so, or this bonus if you have an extreme AC. It obviously gives rules like, be careful about be careful like giving an extreme extreme attack and extreme or high attack and high damage at the same time, because that can be problematic for people. That can, so it gives advice, but it's like, it's very much just try and balance. If you give an extreme thing, give a terrible thing. If you give a high thing, give a low thing. To balance out your monsters. It's very top down, which is good.
It's very interesting that it seems as though that for Pathfinder, at very least, Roll20 is their main partner for a lot of role-playing related stuff that they push on for the online stuff. So, I guess that's why we expect like they're doing a good job of setting up everything really well and making sure that I guess even with the remaster that's coming in, it's like maximizing everything that they had. Even if they're probably just making it really great. And again, like, the sheet as it is, they still might update it before the end of this year. They've launched a new one. They do want feedback to see if like there's tweaks they can do to it and things like that. So if you're trying out playing second edition Pathfinder, maybe this is a good opportunity to hop onto Roll20 and do it online. The updates and stuff. And certainly speaking, if you want to buy some of the bundles of materials, they are at a discount at the moment. So there you go. Alright. So, I wanted to throw this information out there. I got a article about it, but I also have the pre-Kickstarter page.
Also, I do want to make a comment about the awakened animal thing, because you're like, how would they do that? And it's actually kind of simple. They basically just all like, you become bipedal.
No. I meant stat-wise. I was curious as, like, if I'm playing a dog versus a cat versus a beaver versus a bird, how they would have different stats and mobility and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I was thinking about, how that translates. Because when you have an awakened animal, there's a lot of different types of animals, and they have different natural abilities, and I'm curious how easy or hard it is to translate all of them for one basically stat block. You know, I'm curious on that end.
So, the way they did it, I bought the book, by the way. So the way they did it is, basically you have your base thing, which is your, so you pick your size based on whatever creature you are picking. Tiny, small, medium, or large. You are limited to those sizes. Attribute boost, constitution, wisdom. Attribute flaw, intelligence.
Okay, that's pretty straightforward.
Yeah,
simple.
and then you have heritages, and this is where it basically differs, is climbing animal, flying animal, running animal, swimming animal.
Okay.
Are your heritages.
Alright. And then so you build like a type of animal based around those ones. And I'm sure they could introduce other ones in the future for certain other types of more unique animals, like digging animals and stuff like that. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Neat. Alright.
Yep. Yeah, so your heritage depends on your type of animal.
Okay. That's pretty cool. That makes a lot of sense. I figured it was something like that, but I was not 100% sure.
Yeah, just, I mean,
heritage is a good answer.
Might as well.
Yeah, that was good.
Yep.
So here's the Kickstarter coming soon page. But I did want to talk about this because it seems a little interesting. I have an article on Tabletop Gaming News I will provide too, where they talk about this a little bit. Basically, it's a 5e supplement that is going a little bit more fairy tale than your traditional kind of fantasy, which honestly is okay. There are certain things like, I mean, people liked for Magic the Gathering when they did Eldraine, which is basically fairy tale Magic the Gathering, which is a different type of fantasy. So I thought this was a very interesting direction that could be done. With it's supposed to be 180 pages, different types of fairy tale based things, from more traditional to more modern, character options, creatures, and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I thought that was an interesting thing to keep an eye out for. So I did want to shout it out because, honestly speaking, if I don't shout out now, I'll probably forget about it and not mention it when it comes out. When someone talks about it and I can see it, I can be like, I remember that. Then I don't have to remember it like in a few weeks or in a few weeks in June when it goes actually live.
I do find it interesting. Yeah, I do find it interesting how many like 5e supplements are coming out right now. Like so many are like, oh, this is basically this thing using the 5e rules. It's like we're basically gonna make our own game, but we're gonna use the 5e rules as like a base, which is interesting. I don't know, like there's so much of that right now.
We had a lot of that before, but I think the floodgates have opened up a lot more now that the basic 5e rules went into Creative Commons. A lot of people who were maybe like probably hesitant, not necessarily because of the way things were beforehand, but because, like, you know, the sheer fact is a lot of people want their own thing sometimes mechanically and not to be tied to something else. But when that kind of went into Creative Commons and they had more of an excuse to allow themselves that, oh, hey, I have this really cool idea now. I don't necessarily need to work on the mechanics side of things. I can work off of a basis of mechanics and make it a lot simpler, but also then not necessarily be tied at all to Wizards, which is, you know, take it or leave it for being tied to another company. It's like all the stuff that Kobold Press did pre-Creative Commons, pre-everything that happened to the OGL. It was stuff that could be kind of taken on its own for whatever like they were doing, but it was really stuff for 5e as it is as 5e. You know, it's just layers on top of it instead of like something that's a little new and different. And yes, something more like this is probably a little bit more in that layered section of it, but we do have this like kind of, I guess, renaissance of stuff using 5e compatible stuff at this point in time.
Yeah, and it's possible that, like, I'm thinking of it, like, recently, because I've only been doing this show again for the past, like, what, year and a half? Year?
Year and a half, yeah.
Yeah. And that was kind of around the time the whole debacle happened, when probably all of this stopped. And so I'm only noticing it now because it's starting back up again.
Yeah, I mean, I do feel like we had a kind of tabletop renaissance, but I feel like, yes, this definitely, I am seeing more things that mark that 5e compatibility, at least lately. Maybe it was just not noticed beforehand, but, it could have been there. It's just an interesting thing of the flow and ebb of content.
Yeah.
So that's that one. Fabled Empire looks like an interesting thing.
Looks cool. I like it.
Yeah.
I'm actually not super interested. I think it looks neat, and I'd play it if someone else did, but I'm like, I won't get it. But
I like fairy tale stuff because it gives me the option to make fairy tale horror.
Fairy tale horror is awesome. I love fairy tale horror.
I'm sure you'd have the option of some of the stuff.
Which is how fairy tales originated, by the way.
Yep.
I know.
Very spooky tales.
All of them are spooky tales for children as warnings, like don't go into the forest or a wolf's gonna eat you.
Yeah, or some old lady that was fine. Don't talk to that stranger. And don't eat our candy house. Okay. Alright. So I have a second role-playing game to mention. This one is in fact live on Kickstarter. And I wanted to mention it less because I'm necessarily interested in this type of game, because it doesn't really feel like my type of game, but by the fact that it is something a little bit more unique, and that's Castles in the Air, which is the kind of role-playing game where they mention they're trying to do stories like Little Women. That kind of style of stories of, like, an age of, like, growing up in a, like, I guess, old-timey? What kind of age would this be? Like, I guess probably very...
I mean, it's Victorian. Like,
Victorian, that's the word I'm looking for.
Victorian covers a very wide portion of history.
That's true. It's just an age more of, like, I guess traditionally, like, when I think Victorian, I usually aim towards the British version of that, but really it's the same age.
That's just kind of what we've called that period of history, because we're a Eurocentric society, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I mean, it's actually really funny. I actually saw a whole thing about, like, it's almost confusing how everything, because you're like, Imperial Japan, or the, Victorian England, and it's like everything's kind of different. You say ages differently depending on what region you're talking about. And I'm like, saw a whole thing about, like, it actually makes it very confusing about when things happened related to each other, because it's like, wait, so when did this happen in relation to this place?
I do have, again, if people want to see it, I got the Dicebreakers article which introduced me to it. They mention it's for the Gilded Age, from the 1970s and
that would
1870s,
be the overarching
1870s and 1890s.
term.
Fuck.
That is the era of basically unchecked capitalism.
Yay!
Then we got the progressive era, which was slightly better.
Yeah.
I just found $100 bill on my desk.
Congratulations.
I would really love that if I would do that.
Weird flex, but okay.
I don't know.
Just got $100.
Like, this was not here before, and I have no idea where it came from.
Something you left there at one point in time and just forgot all about. If you did some banking at your desk there, you very well could have left there. I don't normally do banking here, but at my desk.
I mean, I don't do banking at my desk either. It looked, honestly, there's like a card here, so I must have gotten it from somewhere, and I don't remember the card being here either. So maybe it like fell on the floor and someone picked it up and put it there or something, or I don't know. Anyway, sorry.
Anyway, Castles in the Air is just to start out. It's fun day with 14 days to go. So if you're interested in what we talk about here, it is good. The digital version of it is about $10. It looks like for the full thing there. It's also in Australian, technically.
It is in Australian.
Australian dollars.
Yeah, the Australian dollar.
It's written in Australian.
Look, when you started laughing, I knew what you were thinking. I I understand my
Anyways.
language was bad.
About $10 or 15 Australian.
Dollars.
Yep.
Uh-huh.
Costs a crisp $100 bill you will find on your desk.
There's some other levels of it that give you more additional stuff and some physical copies on that stuff too there, so you can kind of look into it. Again, this is probably very much so a pure role-playing experience with maybe, like, simple skill-based challenges. You're probably not getting into, like, your kind of things like... I guess maybe there might be rules for, like, a challenge rule or something like that for that kind of period. You know, like, you've challenged my honor, good sir. But even that's probably...
I would actually like more role-playing games to not have combat. I think that is a very
again,
fun
like, I feel like
concept.
this is one that might not have that kind of stuff even too. That might also be more like skill based rather than actual like I'm fighting it out or like, you know, even if that even exists, it might not. I'm just, you know, again, there probably is stuff you'd have to roll, but it is very much more. This is a role playing game. You're in this for the role playing stuff, and it's also probably going to be very real set, you know, real world set.
Yeah, and I kind of wonder if there is a role-playing game that has a social system that like isn't cumbersome. Because I know you could just do normal role-playing, but it just made me think like I wonder if there's like a social thing, like because I feel like most things that have like a social combat system of some kind are very cumbersome and never used.
I mean, this is supposed to be a coming-of-age story. It is based upon, so I'm guessing that maybe the same people did it, the Good Society, the Jane Austen RPG, which probably has a very similar feel for a similar era, but I feel like this one focuses more on, like, I guess, United States rather than, you know, England/European kind of sensibility. I assume, just from the way that's kind of presented. Especially because I mentioned Little Women, which is traditionally... Isn't it? Am I correct on that?
I have never read Little Women.
Yeah.
But I believe it's a Civil War story. Or part of it is the Civil War.
Yeah, it kind of leads into it. Look, I'm sorry, but sometimes I forget things, and I don't remember if I did read that one. If I did, it was one of the books. I have a list of books that are probably like ones that I'm like, I read but didn't read.
It's Jane Austen, so a lot of it probably has to do with stuff like early American War.
Like, I can tell you, I did technically read Crime and Punishment. I can tell you nothing about that novel. Nothing at all. I don't remember anything about it at all, other than that I'm like, wait a second, did I read that? Yes, I did. It was in one of those classes. See, that's why I remember that one. But that was high school. Little Women might have been if it was like earlier than that. I certainly won't remember that. Pre-high school,
Yeah, it's like
I'm not going to remember books.
Jane Austen books, so it probably has to do with some American War, because a lot of that, her style. A lot of people, it's historical fiction, which usually has to deal with if it's in America, Civil War, Revolutionary War, and I think Little Women is Civil War.
Mm-hmm. So it looks like it's, as your character progresses from childhood to adulthood, you know, you figure out, like, your character's roles, desires, relationships, and, like, who your enemies are, and that kind of determines your character. So I guess you get enemies.
I also find it interesting because it's like you are still playing with a group of people, so it's like your characters know each other, but like you could in theory be role playing where it's like, oh, I'm a rival to you, and we're constantly trying to get one up each other, you know, because it's more you're just telling a story. So there's kind of something like that which could be fun.
Yeah. Again, like this seems like an interesting concept. Not necessarily something I would be super interested in, but definitely seems very interesting. So, I fear if it sounds interesting to you, I definitely want to recommend checking out the Kickstarter and looking through it there. Now here, I just had to speak about this one here because it's got a very interesting name. There are 3 other books that they released. The Now, the New, and the Old books that came along with this one. And this is from Modiphius, which I'm pretty sure they're publishing. So it's not a Monopoly's produced, it's not a Monopoly's published. It's the Wine Starter Set. It's the What's Old is New role-playing system. So it's a genre-mashing, time-bending role-playing game system. So that's why they're providing 3 other books. I'm unsure if all 3 of them come with the starter set or if you get them separately, but there's the Now, which is modern, New, which is science fiction, and Old, which is fantasy heroic. So it's sort of like it's a genre agnostic system. Is the best way to say that you're supposed to be. You probably take elements and mash things together from the different books there too. So the starter box just gives you all the basic things, and I guess if you want to get the full experience, you get the other 3 books. But you probably can just play with one of them, honestly, if you want to do kind of more of a modern kind of take on things, which takes you from the 1800s to the 21st century, with rules, creating characters in there. And then each of the other ones takes other time periods. It's an interesting idea. I thought that's why it was also a cool thing to chat about a little bit too.
Yeah.
Certainly speaking, a system that allows you to kind of mix a little bit of like fantasy, sci-fi if you really want to is kind of cool.
It seems though like you're more supposed to mash the genres.
That's what I mean. Like it feels like you are. You could probably do one. You could probably just do it in one of them, but they're probably because of the nature of the system, it is compatible and can mash them. I'm guessing it would depend on what the game master wrote in this case. What to do. Because the fantasy system is fairly standard kind of fantasy stuff, just by looking at it there. Fantasy fair, the sci-fi is again it's fairly standard fare for that kind of time period, and for the roles you kind of get into those that genre, and same with the modern day one. It's a lot of roles for the modern day ones, and yeah, you can mash them together as much as you want. You've got a system that allows you to mash genres or play at each of the initial. Again, it's a good thing that it is a system agnostic genre. We do see some of these in older times, but I like the fact that like they are kind of focusing on the rather than different genres necessarily, different like time periods. I think is a little better for looking at them, because there's certain type of things that match with a certain style of like medieval fantasy is one thing, you know, modern day kind of stuff is one type of stuff, and you know, sci-fi tends to be certain types of characters in those. And then finding the middle point for them is cool.
Okay, yeah. So they do kind of split up, and it's meant to be agnostic. So I'm reading more about the game itself. Yeah, so it's supposed to be agnostic. They do split it up into like the new, old, and now. So each book that they come out with is basically labeled as one of them, old, new, or now. And they basically generate so you can, but yeah, they use the same system, but they have different rules for different things. So like for example, they use the whole same system, but the new has space combat and ship construction, and old has magic, and now has like, you know, modern vehicles and stuff. So that's kind of how it's split up. But you can mash them however you want because they use the same system.
It does seem like there was something published in 2016 originally, and this is basically like a update, farther printing of kind of stuff. Yeah, I'm looking into it a little bit here. I guess I don't know how much success they had in their original release. That's kind of like a question. But it looks like, at least with Modiphius, they're getting either... The starter set's definitely new. The other books might just be that they are getting either reprints or, you know, they are new things to it.
The box set is also going to get a Kickstarter.
Yeah, it would be hard to have a Kickstarter.
No, pure... Oh, sorry, it did. Sorry, it's finally coming out. After having a Kickstarter a year ago. My bad.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, they had a Kickstarter. And I think the three books...
I read a little thing quickly and I misread it. So
I think the 3 books were already technically the original published, and we're getting them republished now by Modifius. So like
Yes.
a reprint of them, and the starter is the new thing that's coming out with it. So it's a starter, a reprint of the 3 books that are like a main compacted of it. So we're seeing it come out again after like again. I might not come out again, but like getting a new coat of paint, new release after 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean that's quite a while. So getting the starter set and getting another publish, especially because Monifius is a good name to be to have as a publisher, honestly.
Yeah.
Being on their website is a good spot to be at. So I'll link to their web page too, because that's probably a good idea. Let's see what's on the web page. That is interesting. There you go. So yeah. Anyway. Cool. That was an interesting thing. I guess that was a good spot to leave out on our normal news of the week, unless anybody else has anything to mention there.
I have nothing more.
Nope.
Cool. Let me talk about our games this week, and then I can kind of throw together the discussion topic, because I can't freaking remember which one we want to talk about. Did anybody do anything last Sunday?
I did something last Saturday, which is why I wasn't here.
Oh, what did you do last Saturday? Let's start with last Saturday, because that was during the time.
Yeah, because sadly, when I have a friend who's super busy, and we've been trying to do a episodic campaign that's only going to be like 6 sessions, but I think we're on we just finished session 4, and it's been like 6 months, so, yeah, but anyway, it's his own little episode. It's his own role-playing system, and basically it's the one where we're in a valley. Some guy predicted the apocalypse is going to happen. Well, the valley is going to be destroyed somehow, and we're trying to figure out how to stop that. So let's see. All that really happened though was some weird spirit, because there's like fayish spirits in this system. And we had to figure out how to appease it, because basically a rogue spirit, which is one that was of like violent emotions, is more what it is, rather than like being bad. It's just it's very honestly Werewolf the Forsaken, or Werewolf the Apocalypse kind of spirits, where it's like they kind of embody something and they're born out of something.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was one of battle. So it was kind of problematic that it was in the valley. We figured out how to appease it for now, but we also don't have time to banish it or whatever. So that, and then afterwards, like the
we'll
other
eventually get to that.
Yeah. But it's appeased for now. We're like, well, there's going to be this combat tomorrow. You can go and feed off of that, rather than trying to start things in the middle of a dance festival, which is where we found it. Like a masquerade kind of ball kind of thing. Because basically the whole thing is the valley is in a festival, a 3-day festival, and that's why it's like we have 3 days to stop things, because apparently it's going to happen at the end of the festival. Yeah, and then we moved on, and then I wasn't involved because my character is part of a house, and I wasn't allowed into the other house's estate, but they had to steal a thing to prevent, because we saw another prediction that was like, this thing is going to cause a big problem later. And so they had to steal a thing to prevent it from causing a problem, which is funny because it was actually something one of the characters originally stole and gave to that group. And then they found out, oh no, that was going to be a problem, because one of the players is a kleptomaniac, one of the players in our group.
And so just pawn it off on another group of people, sort of like,
And
here
then
you
she
go.
sold it, and now it's all like, oh, this is going to be a problem. She's like, well, I guess we'll steal it back. And it's like, okay. Yeah, very, very chaotic. At least it's not a disruptive player. Like, it's someone who's like, yeah, no, she's going to be like this. There are ways around it. So it's not like a player being like, I'm going to be problematic. It's like, no, I want to play this interesting character. You're going to have to deal with it. But she's also at least helpful. So, anyway, that's what I did last Saturday.
Interesting.
Yep.
So Sunday, yes. Momo, you were saying you had something on Sunday.
No, the game got canceled.
The game got canceled. Okay. This is a pretty clear day. Okay. Well then, we had Monday.
Did have Monday.
So... I'm trying to think back about, like, my brain just... I feel like I should remember what happened on Monday.
You should remember what you did.
What the hell did I do?
What you caused.
Oh yeah! I try to stand up for a friend and cause them more issues.
Yeah, look at you, you're the problem.
I was the problem. I kind of knew this would turn up terrible, but I'm like, Perrin would probably do this. Perrin doesn't like this guy and wants to stand up for their friend and make their friend in better standing. So they're gonna, like, you know, basically make a deal with the king.
For one very clearly evil king.
Yeah. I do suspect he's probably going to cheat, but, you know.
He is evil.
He is evil.
Yeah, basically, like, it's festival time, so all that happens. Some people are gonna go do, like, a chess tournament, and that's nerd shit, so I don't care. I got music to play.
Ooh. Damn nerd shit. I'm gonna be coaching someone
nerds.
in doing something. I actually don't even know what the competition is.
It happened. I didn't get to it, because some stuff went too long. River and I did do an out-of-game text roleplay thing, where the details will be revealed probably next session. But basically, all you missed is Liliana is actually dating the prince guy now.
Okay.
So, yeah, that was gonna happen in game, but we ran out of time, and I didn't want to take up like an hour of your free time with a scene that's just me.
Understandable.
What else happened? I think we all rolled pretty well that session when we had to do our rolls for once.
That happens occasionally. Then we had board game.
Yeah, we had my game where stuff happened, where I've subjected you all to what is probably the third and final flesh terrain of our weird multiverse.
We did fight a dragon.
It wasn't a cave this time. It was a forest.
It was a flesh forest that was possessed by, like, evil, and
a dragon still, like, possessed by that and fucked up, by the way.
Yeah.
We're going into it again.
We fixed part of it.
You fixed a little bit of it.
We removed the dragon that was captured and basically controlled by it and purified them.
Yeah, she sucks. Congratulations.
Look, you know,
I don't care. Red dragon.
My character really doesn't care. I'm like, well, I guess I did that job I was asked to. Okay.
Yeah, there's like maybe 3 sessions left. If you guys like do some side stuff.
Okay.
Otherwise, 2. Game's almost over.
I'll probably go with other people who want to do side stuff or not.
I mean, you already don't want to go back in the cool book, you know.
I mean, no one suggests. Everybody suggested we don't because it's evil and lies to us, or not
It
evil and lies to us.
It is a prison.
And the person's like, "Come on, come back inside with me. You totally want to visit this prison." I don't know, book. Are you sure? Yeah, come on. It's a great idea. This is the prison.
Just a prison for housing planar creatures that break planar law.
Yeah, totally. Then we had Wednesday, where there was some exposition and stuff, and we fought a creature that it was never really going to be a super threat, but it also rolled pretty terribly. You know? It had plus a yes, and it rolled pretty badly, so it really did do a lot of damage. Which is actually really good, because it technically had, if it hit someone with 2 claws, it could also break.
Nice.
Which would have been very painful for one of your characters, aka Ada or Candace. But no, it didn't roll very well. But yes, you fought a monster.
It hit me for about a third of my health.
Yeah, it's fine. That's just
Yeah.
basic Pathfinder.
Yeah.
And that's then why I switched to defense mode, where it would have had to roll like, I want to say a 16 or higher to hit me. Yeah, that's what it was. It was about a 16 or higher. I can use the offense mode where it has to roll like.
Actually, no. It actually only had to still only roll like a 12. It still had a plus 19. Even when it was power attacking.
Monsters in Pathfinder.
Yeah.
35.
Oh, you had 35? I thought it was 31.
So basically, I only have 1 swift action per turn, so I basically have to build on it slowly. But my max power is 35.
Okay. You basically
And I was
activate a
there
bunch
by
of
the
abilities to get to the. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah,
You could have
I have to
not
activate
power
one each round.
attacked too, which it would have actually then had like a 50-50 chance of hitting you.
Yeah, but then it wouldn't have hurt as hard, and I would have been fine still.
It would have been 10 less damage per hit, which is a significant amount, but more hits, I don't know, it's that catch-22 of that kind of thing. It still probably would have murdered Candace very quickly if it actually hit. But
yes.
no, it's...
Candace was definitely in more danger.
It's an interesting creature because it's just, I do a lot of damage creature. It's not really much of a threat otherwise.
Yep.
But yeah, you beat that up, met an old man who gave you some information about what you have to do, and he's like, I'm going to come with you to help you out, give you some warnings, and then informed Ada about some backstory stuff, and then we're going to have, next time, Candace is going to meet with their family, and we'll see how that goes for poor Candace. How emotional that is. You like me now, family. I've regained my honor. I'm one of you again. Bro's dead. Let's all be sad together. But certainly speaking, there will be a bunch of other emotional stuff coming up because there's this entire thing with, seeing spirits of the dead come, come speak to you. And let you know about, your past. Your ancestors can come and help you out. And you can have a lot of that. We'll see how that goes for everybody. Definitely really emotional for everybody. I don't know much about Cavill and Zardes, but we'll try. So that's
understandable.
Zardes, at least I kind of understand his character, but we got to get a little bit of that backstory. Just a little bit. And anyway, did anybody do anything on Thursday or Friday?
No.
Alright. So just a regular week that way. So, I did come up with a topic to discuss a little bit here today because it's something that I was looking at my list of topics and I thought about because, honestly speaking, Momo, you and Lightning did this.
What? Flesh caves?
No.
That's
They
a topic?
technically you've done
Flesh
that.
cave
that
topic?
Flesh caves could be the topic, but it's not.
I don't know if you want to have that deeper discussion.
The use of flesh caves.
The use of flesh. How flesh can enhance your D&D games?
No. What I was thinking of is a topic because it was specifically something the two of you had written more recently, and it reflects my character in your game. Religion and beliefs in your games.
That's fair.
Because
also,
that is
how flesh can enhance your dungeon master experience.
Exactly. Certainly speaking, if you're using something like Dungeons & Dragons or Pathfinder, a lot of worlds like that have developed, religious and belief systems for a lot of different characters, you can kind of look up information, kind of get an idea as a player more like about that. But as an GM, you can understand what the players are doing. But there is also that possibility of, honestly speaking, writing that kind of stuff for your own. And you two were developing a deity system, and stuff for your world that you've been writing. And honestly speaking, you've got it that my character worships you. I gotta be honest, I sort of know about my deity in that game, but I don't really know about my deity in that game, because I think it's been like, when I originally started the character, we went along with like what worked, but it was still like that work in progress, and certainly like a lot more stuff has been revealed about different deities and stuff.
Yeah.
And more stuff has been written as we've been going on, but it is developing like, and yeah, this is not just for religion in general. It's like different beliefs and kind of like that kind of cultural side of things. Because like, I mean, we can always take the example of like, you know, in Pathfinder, the Shwanti. The Shwanti, certainly some of them can worship various religions, like Desna and stuff like that in the Galarian world, but a lot of them have their own basic belief systems on, like, you know, the way that spirits and the dead should be looked after and things like that, which is the unique culture there that develops around them. And it's a little bit more than that. It's, you know, that kind of culture of a character, and that's not as always easy to capture, even, like, if you have a world that you're from. Like, you know, I think, too, both as a player and as a GM, like, me being able to express the Shwanti people, or this religion in this game, or these type of characters from this game, or we go to World of Darkness, how, like, some of the changing breeds work and how some of their culture, and saying it in a way that can, not only stays with what's written, but is also kind of respectful to the ideas that are put there. Because I think that's the idea, is that, like, when you use something that is beliefs in a game, I do feel like you want to be respectful to those beliefs, even if they're fake, you know? Like, just because it makes them feel more real, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I want to say a few things about this. So there is definitely three aspects here. There's, first off, beliefs in a system that has concrete deities, i.e., like, you know, D&D and Pathfinder, where it's like the deities exist and give real tangible power, and have real tangible influence.
I don't respect any god from D&D and Pathfinder. They're just wizards.
Then you have deities and systems where it's not as clear, you know, like ones that basically model Earth or that kind of stuff, where it's all like, oh, these, you know, people worship things, but they don't really know. You know, it's like you don't know if it's right, kind of. Yeah. I mean, people can have arguments in logic and philosophy, but in the end, there is, I mean, I don't want to say there's no concrete proof as someone who actually is religious, but anyway, but some people would say it's not concrete enough for a lot of people to agree.
Yes, there is not enough proof that can get the consensus. There certainly are those that we're going to believe from various things that occur, and there's those that are going to still want more because they want that, like, solidity. You're in that kind of nebulous zone.
And then the third one is more related to the other two, and that's culture. How do cultures look at these deities from either the first or the second category?
I think the deity level can also be a little bit more spiritual too, because it doesn't have to be directly like, you know, a god.
Yeah, spirituality. Yeah, there is that one where it's like those, like, where, well, again, I'd say that falls under culture, and like, because technically, if you want to get into, I went to a religious college, and I had to take a lot of classes, even if I didn't finish, so I can go on about religion and stuff. But basically, you have three major categories: pantheism, which is all like, that's kind of the spiritualism that you're talking about. Then you have monotheism, which is one god, and then polytheism, which is multiple gods. So yeah,
I did think of another point that might work in a
and then atheism, which is no god.
Yeah, I did think of something though that is another point in there that possibly could be for a world, and I think that would be the one of something like werewolf, because werewolf there is this very powerful creature that we kind of call a god, but if everybody else looks at it, they just see a very powerful creature that has an effect on the world, but maybe isn't that level of a god. Like the Gaia, the spirit of the earth, where werewolves believe it creates everything, you know, kind of thing like that, you know, the essence of the earth, where other supernatural creatures could see that and see, like, that's a powerful thing. It's not quite the same, you know.
Yeah,
they're-
and
I think that can kind of be in the center there too, a little bit too, between these things of like it's sort of known but not known, which sometimes you can have in a game.
Yeah. Anyway, I just wanted to categorize those because there are categories. People have thought a lot about this. It's actually very common for people to debate religion, so categories have been created.
And again, I think when you're working on either using belief systems or making your own, you do not necessarily have to go in depth for whatever world or universe you're creating as much as an actual one. But you do want to be in a kind of respectful, kind of create something that feels like it is, to a degree, real to your world. It's sort of like you want to make a world that you're building that feels like a real world for your players to play in. These kind of things happen here, these kind of adventures happen here. It can have fantastical elements to it, but it should feel like whatever world your players are playing in, it's the world. That's the idea of it.
Yep. Yeah. I think when it's like when the things have no real tangible or no consensible influence. I don't know if consensible is a word, but I'm using it. That's a lot harder because unless it directly involves your players, most players won't care about it. So in some ways, world building for that is very much for you. Unless you have like cults or religious groups who are fighting that your players have to get involved in and may have to learn about or something. But beyond that, generally those are world building for you. But ones where like they actually give tangible power, players tend to be a little bit more interested because they can actually gain something from worshiping these creatures.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, that's true. I mean, it's the kind of thing of like it going back to like World of Darkness, because it is a modern world and reflects upon our world a lot, especially if you're playing like vampire. There are vampires in World of Darkness that are religious, and just as religious as any religious person, the various different religions and stuff like that in the real world. There are plenty that are not, and it's like reflecting upon like your beliefs first. I'm this weird supernatural creature, so it's adding a level of lack of realism to something that we can probably understand very realistic, because we live in our world. That's an example that's like, oh, it's our world plus just this. That makes it sometimes easy to be like, yeah, I know, like, if my character would be, an old was devout Catholic back when they were alive, from the Middle Ages, and now this ancient vampire, and you've been around for a long time. Do you keep your beliefs? Do you lose your beliefs? Do you still have part of those beliefs? Might be a question. And, yes, not a lot of characters are going to be like that. Most vampire characters are like maybe 100 or 200 years old at most. But even 100 years ago, things were different with the way that people believe stuff or got into things a lot of times too. And so you can have a lot of these more interesting discussions on the, culture, beliefs, and direction that you see and interact with the world. And that works a lot for players. But I think, like, even as I kind of wanted to focus a little bit, because this is like the overall world, it also has to kind of be how you as the person running the game deflect stuff, because regardless of how when your player reflects this, you have to be ready for it, too. Like, if your character, like in a World of Darkness game, your character is devout of some kind of religion, in a modern day religion, you at least should know some basics about what they're going to be doing and stuff like that, so you can talk about that kind of thing a little bit with them, especially if it's part of their character. If it's not something as important in their character, you might not have to worry about it as much, but you want to have those options, or like old beliefs of like the ways things were. Yes, you have to be aware of those kind of things when you're running these games. Like, again, going back to Pathfinder, I have to kind of generally be aware how, like, it's a good example of the Shwanti people, how they kind of believe and function things, because not only are we dealing with them in their lands and a lot of what's going on with them, but two of the characters are Shwanti characters, and, they're a reflection of that culture. But even then, like, the people that were born in Corvosa, there's a certain culture there. that, you kind of reflect it there. And from when they're building their character and reading up on the place and stuff there, and like, oh, this is what my character might know, you're putting together your backstory and stuff, you kind of usually want at least, when things occur, that they don't have to match 1-to-1, they just have to be close enough to what you're thinking about your character, too. Like, I think that's a good thing for, like, you presenting this stuff and presenting this part of the world, how it works through people's beliefs and, worship and all that kind of stuff about, their understanding of how they work culturally. I have to present that in a way that matches with, to a decent degree, the way it's presented from either my material or a book's material to my players, so that they keep up with that, and it I guess matches what they believe, what they kind of think of it as, so it's not like jarring. Is that right? Am I thinking about this right?
Say that one more time. The last point.
Okay. I present the world to my players, and I do it in a way that fits with the ideas that should be kind of ingrained in their heads, at least close enough to it, from material provided to them, whether from a book or from myself, about how the world works and how things are believed and how these cultures work together.
Mm-hmm.
I should be able to do that. I think is an important part of it. To make the worlds feel like these worlds.
Yeah, and to make it feel like... You don't necessarily have to make it feel like these deities exist. You just have to make it feel like people believe they exist and people believe they're important. Yeah.
And again,
that's your job as a GM.
Things can evolve and change. You can play off your players for how certain things go, for a baseline, and I think that's also a good thing too. I feel like that's a thing that happens a lot in like Momo, your game, is there's a little bit of us playing off of like the world you kind of present, and then we play off how our players are, and we kind of find this weird middle ground for certain things. Like, I don't think... I went very much more traditional Fae kind of idea for, like, how a Dryad would be, and you've kind of tapered that to a degree, to a little bit to your world. Yeah. Yours and Light's world. But that means, like, I had a starting point of, like, I didn't know other than, like, well, I'm a Fae, Yeah, I didn't really have a really good
The thing with you is you had to play a Dryad which, like, had nothing written for it, basically. So, it was a little hard to figure out what Dryad culture is for your character. Because they have, previously, I've never really had anything written. Because there's a lot of stuff we still haven't written for our setting.
Again, I figured, at very least, I'm from a very... I would put myself and my character come from a very traditional kind of Fae culture that's kind of like the middle of the woods, we're one with the woods,
Yeah.
We kind of like hang out and just do foresty Fae stuff all our lives until we either, our souls are physically passed to the Feywild or something like that, or one of that kind of version of it,
Yeah.
In some kind of way. But that's kind of where I was working from, and we kind of, that feels like we were developing. But I also could be, honestly, backwaters when it comes to, like, Fae culture. I could be, like, old-timey Fae culture, and there could be, like, I feel like somebody like Gideon, who was a satyr, but was adopted by some people, is much more, like, understands Fae culture to a degree, but is also that kind of more modern side of it of, like, this is more civilized and stuff. And I'm sure maybe there are some Dryads that are like that nowadays, kind of connecting up with the real societies, but I'm old-timey.
Yeah, potential, yeah.
Maybe. I don't know. Like, that's give you anyway, you choose where you were. And the thing is, we don't have a lot of that established sometimes, and we just work it.
No, I just kind of like wing it,
It's like
wing it the best you can.
Yeah, like, even like places that's written about stuff, when you have like 3 sentences about something, you have to be like, okay, that's how this works, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the hardest part of all of this is the people aspect. Like, I mean, I can write a cosmology and stuff. Like, I've written like metaphysical reasons for why things work, but then it's all like, okay, so how does this affect people? That's the hardest part for me.
I think that is a big question too. Like, you can look at like very big picture sometimes, but moving down to that smaller picture can be definitely a challenge as part of it.
definitely easy with how Lighting and I have done it because we've put in place a system of setting rules where hey, gods aren't really allowed to help people.
I mean, that is
They still-
a
Can they still offer them like power though? Is that
Like
so that you
clerics
get
still
clerics and
exist and
stuff?
all that, but clerics in our setting pull magic for planes, not for gods.
Okay.
We've kind of like it's interesting because we're in the process of rewriting how our planes and gods work, but something that stayed true and that we've decided is that gods helped out once and ended really badly. They don't really do it anymore.
it's like kind of like I feel my character has some ability to connect up with the upper planes, but I always feel like I'm connecting up with beings that are part of my pantheon of like,
Yeah.
you know, the strength of it, rather than directly with
Like,
my
you're not-
god.
The best way to say it is you, as a cleric, probably would get some of your power more from something like a Solaire,
Mhm.
like a warlock would, not from a greater deity because they're too busy dealing with planar things. Because in the backdrop of the setting, there is kind of a mega planar chaos thing going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Then you've
It
got
does-
that.
It's,
I'll
it's
let you go
interesting.
first.
I was just saying it's an interesting aspect of like trying to figure out in a system like that one where it is again it's getting into that kind of middle ground of like I still get powers but it's not quite the same because sort of like they're kind of there. I'm getting powers from like areas adjacent to them like the outer planes which exist, but I'm not really directly from them getting powers, you know, and stuff like that. I'm drawing on energy. I can draw upon all this like, you know, planar energy to do stuff, but it's like it is kind of interesting because it is a step back in a different direction from your traditional like Pathfinder or D&D where they're like, yeah, go ahead, I can talk directly to you. You know,
Yeah,
like,
it's very unlikely that you'll ever get to talk to an actual god. It's happened for minor deities, but for greater deities, it's probably never going to happen.
like I'm gonna admit, like your characters in Crimson Queen right now, if Lightning wanted to, Lightning could probably get a conversation with their deity.
Yep.
They are at 12th level. That can earn that level.
Absolutely.
It might be difficult to do, but not impossible.
Yeah.
Just Pathfinder. I mean, in the pirate game, we all talked to gods.
Yeah.
And we were nobody pirates. Kinda.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think the easiest way to do gods in a game is to do pantheistic, which is polytheistic, which is many gods. And they basically just have petty human squabbles, basically Greek god style.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If Lightning was here, Lightning could better explain the deities, because the deities are kind of Lightning's thing. My thing is I'm making the stuff the gods are more or less fighting against.
Yeah, this
Which
never came...
you're experiencing in the game the Nightless Night guy. He's not a god, he is just an evil entity.
Yeah, the Bastion Frontier setting, which I call Garuna, because that's the name of the planet. Or no, wait, that's the name of the continent? I need to go back and look at my notes. It's either planet or the continent. But
I love
yeah,
that game, but also like my character was so terrible.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I had a whole cosmology.
Is that me? Was everybody? It's just me.
I'm here.
Okay, one froze up there. Damn it. Man, I did love Bastion Frontier, but I do feel like I was not great at the thing because I kind of renamed the religion. I think it was, but it was like also like you're back one.
Yeah, I'm back. Am I back?
Yeah,
Okay.
you're good.
Yeah. So as I was saying, So you guys didn't dig too much into it, although it was semi-related to Tiv's character, and that is that there are like a few deities which are like the true deities, who created people, and then people found a way to gain like superpowers and basically became gods themselves.
I thought I was religious to a degree. I served like the dragon deity, I believe.
Yes. Yeah, so the dragon deities, I think there were 5 of them? I need to, again, going back and double check.
I also remember my character was, like, misinformed about so much stuff. Because
because you had the whole thing. Anyway, that's, but yeah, the dragon deities, were the ones who, basically made the world, and then, like, people kind of were like, we can do better, and then there was this whole thing that happened. But yeah, basically ending in one of the dragon deities' death in an attempt to stop the others from like fighting, something like that. I have all of this written down somewhere. I need to go back and read it again. It's been a while since I visited that world.
It was a fun world. I can say that.
Yeah,
I did enjoy playing in there.
But yeah, people could achieve. Basically, most of the gods that people worshipped were basically just people, because you actually can gain. Actually, that's actually how people can gain levels quickly, is they gain renown, which actually gets people to, like, effectively believe in them, which gives them more power. So that's actually, in a way, how I explain leveling up in that world. It's like, as you do more things to gain more power, more people know about you, which gives you more power.
Yeah.
And then you can achieve deityhood at some point after level 20. Probably like, 25 is about when you achieve deityhood.
I think it just is like an aspect that a lot of times I feel like this is the thing that I can say about 5th edition. 5th edition passes over this a lot more nowadays. Like, if you just go by base 5th edition, it's both good and bad, because as a fantasy setting, I feel like it's the kind of setting that really doesn't go well with ideas that are very system agnostic as much, but they kind of do, because they don't talk about what's going on in Forgotten Realms as much. You have to look at the books that are there, like the actual novels or stuff. Maybe the adventures kind of hint at you about stuff. They do kind of mention the deities, but don't really get into them very in depth. For clerics. Clerics are more focused on, like, I'm this domain cleric. Then you kind of focus on it. And I feel like that's a thing that, like, when I'm playing in Momo, your game, I actually feel like there is, like, a little bit more of the world than if I was playing in, honestly, Forgotten Realms at this point in time. And it's an unfortunate thing that I feel like it's not necessarily bad. You don't have, like, a living world, but I feel like that this degree of adding in, like, the religion, beliefs, culture to a world makes it feel more like a world, and kind of helps out in those things, I think. It makes things more interesting. Like, you can present it in a lot of ways, but, like, I guess when you homebrew, it's a lot easier to present things than, like, if you're using a pre-made world sometimes, but I feel like you can add it still.
Yeah, Lightning and I have basically a big world Bible document that we pull from for stuff.
Yeah, and the reason for that is because when you build it, you know what's happening. I eventually learned about, like, some of, like, the deities and stuff for, Forgotten Realms. Honestly, though, I learned more about them from like, Baldur's Gate 3 than I did ever, like, from, like, anything I've read elsewhere. It's just playing through it helped you learn it better. Because that's the thing, is it's hard to kind of grasp the nuances of, like, a religious system unless you either build it or play it. So you need to play in someone's game who has, like, a grasp of that, or you need to, build it yourself.
Like, that's the thing, is I'm pretty confident I can at least display a lot of what Pathfinder's system is, because I have done a lot of lore on Pathfinder and dove a lot into this. Like, I think in general there are some aspects of the divine system in that world that I'm not as good at. I think some of, like, the minor deities or side deities or some of the unusual ones, kind of like the dynamic between a lot of them, like, that becomes a little bit harder. But, like, like, playing through Kingmaker and Wrath of Righteous did help too, honestly, because they do present some of the Pathfinder world and their deities there pretty decently for those games. I have my, like, pluses and minuses about those games, certainly. I've talked about that in the past. that's at least a
Yeah.
good thing that they do. Like Baldur's Gate, you say, where it presents the world in a way that you kind of grasp it a little bit more.
Yeah. It's just kind of, it breaks it down into bite-sized pieces because people don't do good at just reading a giant page of lore. You know, that's not,
Yeah.
people don't do well with that. They need a story. Your brain wraps around better with a story. And that's kind of another thing I'd actually might recommend. Write a story. If you are like trying to build a thing, write a creation story or write a story of a war between gods or something. And it might actually help you devise something on how things kind of, how each deity, like why they want to, or how they might want to be worshipped, or why they're worshipped the way they are. You know, that's also something you can do. I've done that before. I need to do it more, honestly.
Very interesting.
Yeah, that's an interesting note that I forgot about, and I'm like, actually, no, that's a good thing. I've done it before. It does help you get an idea of what you're doing with it.
For that, this is something that will never see the light of day because I don't like sharing my writing, but the reason why I know a lot of technically Lightning setting, because that setting isn't mine. Lightning made most of it. I just help here and there. The reason I know a lot about that setting off the top of my head is because for practice, I've taken to just writing like basically a memoir of one of my old D&D characters and what they've done throughout their life in that setting. So that's how I know a lot of what's happening there. Because I'm actively engaging with it constantly.
And I think that's the thing that, like, I think we kind of have chatted a little bit about this kind of stuff before, but this is the point in time where, like, I'm like, yeah, you building something, you dealing with how your world, whatever version of your world is it going to be, I'm running Galarian, I'm running Forgotten Realms, I'm running Modern World, I'm running my own setting. You asking that question, you know, and then, like, asking that question maybe to your players about, like, what their kind of direction is, and kind of, like, developing that kind of dynamic of what it is in your world is a very important part about it. You know, again, you can go full... honestly speaking, you can basically maybe not ask that question in the first place between certain things, but the degree that the decision to not ask the question about what is there for your people in that world to talk about kind of reflects upon the, you know, what other kind of things do they think and believe about there, kind of stuff like that. Now, there is some interesting worlds that, like, I think a setting that I ran that really has its own interesting culture and beliefs that never brings up really religion at all, except like this broad terms which in a weird term is different. When I ran Dominaria in Children of Wrath, there's like one god in that game, and it was technically a planeswalker. It was a living god that died, you know, that is actually dead, but people still worship, even though it doesn't really exist, you know, so they don't actually have gods, as far as they say, in the Magic the Gathering world of Dominaria. There are other god creatures that are more akin to the Greek gods and other planes and stuff like that do exist, but in Dominaria, you don't have that. You just have, like, maybe the people that worship Sarah, and that's it. And if you don't worship Sarah, you have some beliefs, but they're not really related about that kind of thing, which is kind of an interesting concept, that there isn't really, like, as much religion and stuff in that world. And it doesn't mean the world's any worse for not having it a lot, or having it very rare. There's still a lot of interesting stuff going on, but it does create a different dynamic a lot. And certainly, like, honestly, limit player options of having 5e characters in there. You really only have one choice if you're a cleric most of the time. Or like, you know, maybe more generic, like, you know, worshipping positives or negatives, you know, kind of that kind of thing, you know, or choosing, like, deities, but...
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, and that's another thing you kind of touched on, and I kind of want to emphasize a little bit more. If you are, like, running a game and it is an existing world with existing deities, like, you know, Faerun or Forgotten Realms, or something, like, you know, do look to your players as to what they might want to worship or something. If they have questions, you can look it up and explain. But otherwise, just take it piece by piece. It's like, okay, well, if I'm going to use a deity as an antagonist, like a cult of Orcus or something, let me read about just Orcus. And they may have some conflicts with some other people, which you can then branch off from. But yeah, if you're researching a deity, definitely take it step by step. Don't feel like you have to know what every god is doing all the time in your world.
I think that's the thing too, is like, regardless, you develop what you need for your world. And if your players bring a question to the table or an idea to the table, that's something that you want to develop more, then you can develop it more if it's your own stuff. Or like, again, as you were saying, learning about it in, Forgotten Realms or somewhere. Yeah, maybe your player was like, I'm interested in this thing here. And then you can be like, well, okay, I guess I'm learning about that now.
Yep, and you do that a lot as a GM.
So yeah. Anything else we kind of want to hit on with this? I wanted to kind of... It's similar to a topic we talked about a couple months ago, but I wanted to kind of take it in a slightly different direction. That's why I kind of kept this one on the list. Because, like, this is like... There's a difference between creating belief systems a lot of ways, or, like understanding them and then, like, using them. And I think that's where I'm kind of focusing more on, like, using them, understanding them with your players a little bit more on my discussion.
Yeah.
I hope we kind of liked it. So it's a companion piece of that one.
Yep.
I have a few of these on my list of companion pieces, and I really should do them together. A couple of these. Anyway. Anybody have anything else, or we call that there? I think that leads us to the end of today. I don't think there's anything else to discuss. We've had some people maybe shout out some things, and we can call it for now and get going. Momo, do you have anything to throw out there into the existence of either universe?
No, I don't.
Okay. How about you, Worm?
Hi, I'm DiamondWyrm. You can find me on twitch.tv/DiamondWyrm or at DiamondWyrm on Twitter. I will be streaming tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. PDT. I also plan to stream in the morning on Monday because I have the day off. It's Memorial Day, so might as well do some streaming. Well, actually, we'll see. I have some things I actually really do need to get done, so I might actually not. Now that I think about it, I'll think about it. Catch my next stream tomorrow to know if I would decide whether or not to decide what to do.
I will be streaming on Monday. I don't know exactly what time I'm going to start. So it's going to kind of... I'll figure out what's going on with my schedule. I might be a little later, but I won't be too much later. I'll be doing some more Hollow Knight Randomizer on Monday. That's my plan. And if you want to catch the rest of my tabletop or gaming stuff, it's been Hollow Knight Randomizer and Elden Ring. These are my two things I'm doing right now. And then tabletop stuff will all be on Tuesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, and then Crimson Queen on Wednesdays at 9. So make sure to check out all that stuff I do. Social media link below in any descriptions. And make sure to check out these people either on their own channels or on my channel. Especially they'll both be here on Wednesday for Crimson Queen. Should be another exciting episodes there. All right, everybody. Hope you have a great rest of your weekend. I'll at least see you on Monday. If you're not checking out any of those people before then. And until then, I say to all of you out there, farewell and goodbye. Goodbye.
Bye.